Meeting of the Board of Education to order. The next regular Board of Education meeting will be held on Saturday, January 5th at 8:30 a.m. in the Board of Education meeting room. We will see you all very soon. We will begin without formal comments tonight from the chair or the superintendent, but I would like to say Happy New Year to everyone. It's nice to see the board all back together again. I hope you had a nice holiday. But with that, we will move into the review of the 2019-2020 budget book structure and format. Dr. Landon and Mr. Feeney.
Well, good evening, everyone. We're going to start tonight by going over briefly the budget structure and format of how the budget is currently formulated, and entertain any questions along the way that the board may actually have. First, there are copies of the budget book that we're distributing. If you find that your name isn't on the list, please let us know what your name is. Tomorrow, this presentation, as well as superintendent's presentation, will be online, and copies of the budget will also be online for the public to see as well. The format of the budget that we've once again have used for the past 5 years in a row is a modified zero-based budgeting concept. In short, this is a method of budgeting in which all expenditures have a base of $0, and any increase beyond that must be justified as to what was previously expended into the fiscal year. There are a lot of acronyms in the book. These are the top 11 that you'll be able to follow along with. The BOE is the Board of Education, RTM and RTME, Representative Town Meeting Education Subcommittee. F&B is Finance and Budget. BOF is Board of Finance. RCs are our responsibility centers. And that's important for you to understand as well. So our responsibility centers would be Darien High School, Middlesex Middle School, all of our elementary schools. In addition to that, you would have our art, physical education, PE, maintenance, and finance, and so forth. ECS is for educational cost sharing. It's a formula given to us by the state of Connecticut, as well as EC, which is excess costs. Sometimes those two acronyms get mixed up. ELP is our early learning program. ESY is our extended school year, and an FTE is a full-time employee. There are 3 different phases in the structure and format that we go through. The first phase is early January, which is today. The superintendent presents his proposed budget. The recommended budget is approved by the Board of Education in early February, and the budget is adopted and approved by the RTM in May. The timeline as to how we get there: we start this budget process in early October. The budgets are distributed to our responsibility center managers. Step 2 is major key requests to the superintendent go before him. Superintendent communicates to the Board of Education as to what those key requests are. In November, all the budgets are due to the finance office, and in December, we review the budget, and in late December, it gets presented to the printer, and then January, it gets distributed today. Some key dates and schedules also included in your budget as well. Today is January 3rd, where the public review, the meeting with the Board of Education occurs. This Saturday is an all-day work session where the BOE and administrative team reviews the budget. January 8th is a key meeting with the Board of Education, Board of Finance, and RTM meet. January 15th is our regular is a special Board of Education meeting, and we have our public hearing on the 29th. The Board of Finance will review in March and April. We'll also do a tour of the schools on March 16th. To be determined are our work sessions that we always have with the Board of Finance. And the Board of Finance will vote on the budget on April 11th. And again, the RTM will vote on the budget on May 13th. The document itself is a plan of the Board of Education's budget of meeting its goals and objectives. It's important to note that as we're in December, we started the process in October, that it is a plan of expenditures starting July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. And given that distance, or that heading out into that fiscal year, there are many things that can change between now and then. The budget book itself has many different parts to it. The 5 major parts are the executive summary, which will be located in the white tabs. The yellow tabs of the budget are detailed by responsibility center. Those are the yellow tabs. We break down detail by detail, or at least detail by object, in the second set of white tabs in the back of the book. And I think this is a key section of the budget that sometimes gets overlooked. This breaks down our object codes. So you can break down teacher aides, substitute teachers, and look at a history as to where things have changed over the previous fiscal years. We have a section of detail of grants, state and federal, and we also detail our cafeteria and our capital budgets as well. Again, the executive summary in the beginning of the book is the superintendent's message, the Board of Education's goals and objectives, a brief budget overview, and our enrollment projections as well as personnel. I apologize for this slide being so small, but the enrollment projections are the key drivers for the 2019-2020 budget. I'll just highlight one. There are some red circles here. If we take Hinley, for example, Hinley in 4th grade, and this is in your budget book. If we take Hinley in 4th grade, it has projected to be 72 students. Next year in 4th grade, there are 3 sections projected, so the average class size is 24. The standards, elementary class size standards, are K to 1 is 22 at the high end, 2 and 3 is 23, and 4 and 5 is 24. So if you do 72, 3 sections is 24. 24 is the maximum or the high end of that. If there's one more on the bottom, there's an absorption table which is colored here. If there's one more that basically comes into that particular grade level, that's highlighted down on the bottom right-hand side with the number 1, that would cause one section to basically turn. So we would be adding one additional section. So this is a key chart to look at. In particular, the absorption rate of 4 is highlighted. So as we look into the 1920 budget, into the enrollment, there are four highlighted areas in yellow that we'd be watching. So if there is one section, for example, in Hinley, for kindergarten, 2 additional students would cause an additional section to occur, which would require an additional teacher. Same with Holmes in 1st grade, 2 additional students would require an additional section. The yellow tabs of the book, once again, they highlight all of the elementary, middle school, and high school individual building-based budgets. It also includes the maintenance, the art, the technology, the health, the personnel, the curriculum development, and the finance as well. As you look at each individual RC, here's a snapshot of what you'll be looking at. This one in particular is RC 15, which would relate to computer technology in the upper left-hand side. We give you a 3-year history of our actuals, of what was actually spent, and then we also focus on the current budget year information. So what you'll see is the adopted budget for 18-19, excuse me. That column in the next to that would be transfers. So if there are any transfers that occurred from the beginning of the year till today, it would show in that column. The revised budget would be your budget plus or minus any transfers that occurred. That would give you your revised budget. The year-to-date is the year-to-date expenditure. So what we're going off of here, or the printout was on 12/13/2018. All of the expenditures have been captured leading up to that date. And then we also give you a line as to estimated, what we estimate the year end would actually end at. The right-hand column is the Board of Education's recommended budget, and we're comparing revised versus recommended, and we also give you a percentage increase of revised versus recommended. When you look at the personnel sections of each individual RC, and here's a snapshot of the health department, a little bit larger here is you look at the current staff. Current staff is where we currently are, and if there's any new staff, it would be in the proposed staff column as well. And again, we're comparing the revised budget versus the recommended budget, and we're also comparing the percentage increase of the revised to the recommended as well. In the back of the book, you'll see tabs that will break out the following. All of our equipment listing is broken in the back of the book with detail as to what we're trying to do. The grant summary is also detailed, so in addition to what the taxpayers are paying for, there's also the additional how much money we're receiving in grants. The cafeteria budget is a self-operating fund that is also detailed there, and all of our capital requests are in there as well. Tomorrow, this is a snapshot of our website. All of our budget documents will be on the website, and as you'll see, we have 2011, 2012, leading up to 18-19. So you will have, again, the superintendent's budget. You'll have this presentation, and you'll also have copies of the budget book online. And as
Mike,
we go to
can
each
you-
individual meeting, yes, I'm
Can
sorry.
you just run through where to find that on
Sure.
the site?
This will have a quick link, and this is also located under the finance. If you search on departments, you click on finance, this will be in here under budget documents. And if you're following along, everything that we actually do and we post, or questions that may come up on the Saturday's meeting, will be all posted on here as our responses, and you'll be able to follow along with where we currently stand in the budget process. With that being said, that is the structure and format of the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Feeney. Are there any board comments or questions? Other than thank you once again for walking us through this. And then we will move on to the, oh, sorry. Mr. Davis, you do love to take me off topic. Quickly, please.
Jack Davis, 197 Hoyt. I saw in the listing that you were looking for responses from, I can only speak for F&B, on the Tuesday meeting. That's not happening.
So Jack, we can take that offline, but that schedule's been posted for quite some time.
Okay.
We can try and find a
I
different
think
time.
the 15th would work only because we have to meet, and just to get everybody here, get their thoughts, just isn't reasonable to get productive comments back to the board.
So that's not budget structure, but you and I can speak. We will move on to the superintendent's presentation of proposed budget 2019-2020.
It's not here, I think, so they're gonna go.
Okay,
You want to wait? Or you want me to just go into it?
it's up to you.
I'll go right into it, and we'll catch up.
Are there
with
copies in the back?
this. I'm not
There are,
sure.
okay. Yeah, there's copies in the back to
Oh,
follow
good.
along.
Let me start by saying that your administration this year was particularly cognizant of the need to hold our budget expenditures down to the most reasonable level we could do without hurting kids. We were very, very sensitive to the changes in the federal tax laws and the impact on local residents. And we were equally concerned and continue to be concerned about the possibility that at the state level there could be a withdrawal of state funds for schools in districts such as ours, with a redistribution of those funds to other districts with who are less fortunate in terms of economic terms. So we were very, very cautious in moving forward. Obviously, our first criterion was to make sure that we wouldn't do anything to hurt kids in any way, to take away any of the programs they currently have, and to do our best to modify our budget in any way we could, starting with a zero-based budget, to ensure that where we saw a pressing need for new programs, that we would do that again in a fiscally responsible way, and within the limits we believe we had to set for ourselves. Having said that, we talked with, we brought all of our elementary school principals together. We explained to them what our priorities were and indicated to them how they would have to prioritize among their needs and their wishes, because we were going to move forward only with those things that had the highest priority, that did not affect the quality of education that the kids receive. And the elementary principals were very good at that. We did the same with the high school principal and the Middlesex principal, and we worked together to do the best that we could for the kids and the taxpayers and the Board of Education of Darien. So, as you will note on the next slide, our intent was to really be fiscally responsible while maintaining the integrity of programs and looking at every possibility within our staffing to reduce costs without having an adverse effect on programs. And of course, one of the priorities, and I discussed this with you earlier, and I'll be happy to expound further on that, were the district initiatives, which were only really two major ones that we tried to maintain those and offset the cost of those with savings elsewhere. And I think we were successful at that. So our budget proposal to the board tonight is for a 2.98% increase, below 3%, a total budget increase of $2.9 million, which comes to approximately $101 million, which, on the basis of comparisons with other districts on per pupil expenditures, I think puts us in pretty good shape with our Dirt A counterparts. Again, the interesting part about school budgets, it's a very simple fact. Between personnel and benefits, we are expending 80% of our total budget. Our fixed costs are in there for utilities and transportation, and our operating costs, if you really think about it, our operating costs are really a very, very small part of the budget once you exclude fixed costs, salaries, and benefits. On the revenue side, we continue to show revenues for various programs, as you can see listed on that slide. Our concern continues to be what's going to happen with the excess cost grant, whether that will maintain itself. As you know, the legislature has played with the numbers over the years. We are also, as I said earlier, very, very much concerned about what the state's going to do with its aid to school districts such as ours. So as we looked at personnel, which obviously are our greatest costs, we were able to reduce certified teachers at the elementary level by 3, and that's based on enrollment projections. We did add 4 psychologists at the elementary level, and I'm going to say this now, and I'm going to say it again on Saturday, I'm going to say it every week. This is not a special education expenditure. This is an expenditure for every kid in the district, where those services are not currently being provided. And they have to do with such things as social emotional learning. It has to do with kids in crisis because of divorce, death in the family, some serious illness in the family, where those kids need to meet in groups with a psychologist and have the opportunity to share their thoughts, to take some of the burden off them individually. And we added the middle school guidance counselor, another initiative I'm passionate about, because here we'll be able to have 2 counselors on a grade level following the kids through from grade 6 to grade 7 to grade 8, which will be better for kids, better for families, with certain guidance counselors assigned to those kids will know those kids better than anybody else in the building ever has. So those are the 3, and we really looked to minimize costs elsewhere in order to enable those initiatives to take place. We do have, for your knowledge, we do have paraprofessional and secretaries contracts, and those percentages are laid out on that slide. In June of this year, we begin negotiations with the custodians, maintainers, and the cafeteria workers. I'm sorry, I will miss the negotiations with the teachers. That could be a lot of fun. And the administrator's less fun. Technology, we continue to support the one-to-one initiative. We're continuing to roll out the one-to-one grades 5 and 9, and we will be completely with individual computers or laptops at the high school for all kids at the high school. We've discussed with you our capital improvement plan previously. This is a summary of what the board agreed to in terms of priority 1 projects. You can see what we list first: Darien High School, Middlesex High School, Henley, and Holmes, and then we move on to Royal and Tokenique and the central office. You will notice that Ox Ridge is not on that list. And I have to tell you, I may be passionate about the initiatives, but I'm equally passionate about the need to begin work. And I'm so delightful that the town has a building committee that it's setting up, if it hasn't already. That building is in so need of replacement that the sooner the work gets done, the better off it is for every kid who attends that school, and the staff as well. It's really an old, dilapidated, and outdated building. On the next page, you can see the grants that we have. If you look closely at our budget, you'll notice that we have declining grants. If you go back 5 years, see the kinds of grants we've had in the past and what we have currently, not just at this list, but at all of our grants. But if you look at particularly Title I, Improving Basic Instruction, in 2016 we had $416,000, down to $359,000 in 2017-18, 2018-19 down to $191,000, and this, of course, is our greatest fear, not only at the federal level and not just on our grants, but for the impact of the tax changes on local residents, but also the loss of state aid that's possible as the state looks to redistribute wealth among school districts, with the most needy receiving funds that otherwise would have gone in a normal cycle to all districts. So you can see our IDA 2 grant. Similarly, in every instance, we see incredible reductions in the grants we've received. Our 3-year average, 2.49%. It's a little above that this year, but well within, I think, an acceptable amount considering the economy and the rest of what's going on with inflation and the like. And our budget, you can see our fiscal year for not only these 3 years, but 3 years before that. And finally, we reflect upon the spending in our DIRG, and you can see we're not at the bottom and we're not at the top. I think considering what we spend in comparison to the others, I believe that the community of Darien is getting one heck of a bang for its buck. You're getting incredibly high quality education at what would appear to be a reasonable price. So thank you all. That's the budget.
Thank you. We all look forward to budget season and receiving our budget. Recognizing that we have all day Saturday as a work session, are there any general comments or questions from the board tonight for administration? Mrs. McCammon.
Dr. Landon, I noticed that you've pulled out the IDEA 2-year grant and isolated that particular grant. Is there a reason beyond just the level of the decline that you have that grant on a separate slide from the other ones? Is there something else you wanted to point out?
It wouldn't, for presentation purposes, it just wouldn't fit on one slide.
Okay.
Yeah. Mrs. McNamara?
On the initiatives, and you talk about the increase with the guidance counselor and the psychologist, and you also mentioned the 3 certified staff. Can you briefly talk to us about how that came about, the 3 certified staff?
Well, every year, as you know, we take a close look not only at the Malone and McBroom projections, but we have our own in-house expert, and that's Mr. Feeney. And if you look at his estimates over the years, they closely parallel moderate growth as described in the Malone and McBroom reports. I mean, he does a great job at estimating it, and we talked at length with the principals, who always are reluctant to give up any staff, but there comes a point at which the enrollment does not correspond with the numbers of teachers, and at that point, you have to, which is what we did, we reduced 3 teachers because of declining enrollment.
Okay, I'm sorry, may I clarify? Was this through retirement, or were these 3 individuals asked not to return?
During the course of the year, lots of things happen.
Okay.
Sometimes people retire mid-year. Sometimes we ask people to leave.
Okay, so it was
It's always a combination of
Right.
things, and that just the nature of things.
But
Okay.
Dr. Landon, to put the point on it, at times enrollment, if sections dip, there could be perfectly wonderful employees that we no longer have need for, so we release. So it could be retirement, could be termination, or we could be releasing staff because we no longer have need for them.
Right, I just didn't
But-
want the message to go out that we are firing teachers
No, no,
because
no.
of the budget. I just want to make sure that
In-
story didn't start.
In this instance, it's strictly based on enrollment. We don't need the 3 teachers. And as the year goes on, the end of year comes, we know what we can expect. And as you know, Mike builds in a turnover sum in our budget. Because people do retire at the end of the
Right,
year. Some
absolutely.
just leave to take jobs elsewhere. Some move out of state. Some leave for various personal reasons. So we do not fire people to make
Okay,
up
I just wanted to
for-
clarify for the public as to how that reduction of 3 sort of came about. Thank you.
Mrs. McCowan?
I wanted to say thank you for the historical data that's included here. I think it's tremendously helpful to be able to see, for example, the what our percentage increases have been year over year for the past few years. It's helpful to see that, for example, what the grants have been. There are 2 other areas where, in preparation for the budget, it would be helpful for me to see similar data. I would love to see our capital expenditure just in aggregate for about 5 years, just to have a sense of what that scale usually looks like. I'd also love to see about 5 years of budget control, how we typically use that number, just to have a sense for planning for this coming year, please.
So is that work that the board would need to order that work, so you either have a chance to explain further why you think you'd need it, or if there's anyone else who would like to, because we would need to, if that's work to put together, if that's an easy factual reports you have, that's fine. But can you explain a little more what you'd like on capital?
I just want the aggregate number, just a 5-year history, so that we can have a sense of what the scale typically is. It's just helpful to make that decision in context in terms of thinking about volatility over time.
Any other thoughts on it from the rest of the board?
And
Mr.
if
Burke?
you want to see the number, that's fine, I'll support it. I don't know that really gives you any kind of predictability. Different things come up at different times for different reasons. So I don't see it as a predictive, but never really hurts to look at the numbers.
Any other thoughts?
I personally like the idea. I think it allows us to do better forecasting of what we should do so that we don't have fluctuations, and we should be better prepared to spend a similar amount each year as opposed to fluctuating every year. So I think Ms. McCammon's point is very well taken.
So my only concern with it, time-wise, Mrs. McCammon, if you need it for consideration, and Mr. Feeney in putting together, do you think seeing the aggregate numbers without significant backup detail tells the story, and/or could you put that together?
For the aggregate for the capital budget would be easy to do. Budget control history as to what we actually spend out, maybe take a little bit more time than Saturday.
Okay. All right, so let's do capital if we can for Saturday, because it sounds like there's a feeling that that would be helpful as people understand the budget. And then we can talk on how to prepare budget control and see what we can get together within the process.
Thank you.
Okay? Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I know we're all saving all our questions for Saturday. I hope you're all like as excited as we are. With that, I will ask if there's any public comment this evening. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this evening. Mrs. McCammon and Mr. Maroney, all in favor? That is unanimous, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.